Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Davis. I am a program chair, the Forbes School of Business and Technology here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. And it is my great pleasure and honor to present with my colleague, Dr. Nancy DeVore. Nancy, how about you introducing yourself?
Well, thank you very much, Bill. It's an honor for me to be here with you as well. My name is Nancy DeVore. I'm a business consultant, and I am an associate faculty member at the University of Arizona Global Campus. My main interest, though, is in bridging the gap between online learning and real-life experience. My specialty in psychology is inspired change and chance encounters, and how that can move people toward their higher purpose and unlock possibilities.
Absolutely. You're doing many good things to help everyone find their purpose, and you're a great colleague. With that said, I want to just make the point that the student is the most important person on our campus, UAGC. Without them, there would be no need for the institution. We're very focused, dedicated, committed toward furthering student success and creating a meaningful and gratifying learning experience. Nancy, do you agree with that? And what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. And it's one of our subtopics for our presentation today, student-centered learning. Students are the whole purpose of why we are here.
Absolutely. Well, and one thing, I'd be remiss if I did not talk about this wonderful University of Arizona Global Campus vision. I have it pinned up at the top of my computer. And, here at the University of Arizona Global Campus, we strive to empower, support, enrich, and graduate every student, move them through their learning continuum, to be there, be student-centered, student-centric, focused, and doing everything that we can to create the most meaningful and gratifying learning experience. Nancy, some thoughts about the UAGC vision?
Well, the UAGC vision is definitely the underpinning for this presentation, because we're looking at active learning, student-centered learning, and how that fits with open access for higher education.
Absolutely. And, we embrace diversity, and we're here for everyone, and we bridge the gap. We work across cultures, groups. We're doing everything in our power to make students successful here and making them feel they matter. So the purpose of this presentation today, part one, there's basically three parts, and we'll move through this in an efficient, effective way. And first, we just want to say a few things about part one, open access education, student-centered learning, and then the traits of effective facilitation, what effective facilitators do. Part two, we want to provide a learning context, so we understand, those attending this presentation, watching this video, why do people learn? Learning styles, how people learn, the MBTI research, the types of mental processing, so students can understand, educators can understand, how do I learn best? How do our students learn best? And then finally, part three, active learning. What is it? Active learning to engage learners in open access, examples of active learning, how we apply it. And then we're going to conclude with some key takeaways of what we took away from doing this presentation and share those with you. And you may want to do the same thing at the conclusion of this presentation. So Nancy, I'm going to go right to you and tell us a little bit about open access education.
Well, thank you for that question. Open access is the act of making educational resources available and affordable to students in higher education. And the theme of this conference is working towards yes. And the conference is posing this question: does the culture of higher education need a new paradigm? In the process of forging that new paradigm shift, the strict admission tests and enrollment costs have posed a barrier that represents no to some people who are looking at higher education for themselves. More colleges are providing open enrollment and admissions. Open access education removes those barriers to say yes to more adults who want to experience higher education.
Yes, and I've seen so many thousands of success stories because of open access education, and it's just wonderful to see our students come and walk across that stage and feel the success and how hard they worked and the gratification that they get from achieving a wonderful goal in their life. So, Nancy, student-centric themes. We are very student-centric, you and I, the University of Arizona Global. What can you tell us about some student-centric themes?
Well, thank you, Bill. This diagram does a great job of showing how much we put into the students. The student-centric themes from this diagram that I rely on are meeting students' expectations on their terms and personalized, content-rich experience. 3 ways that student focus relates to open access are these. Number 1, flexibility. It's about removing barriers and the stress of unnecessary procedures for online learners. Digital learning organizations like UAGC make adult higher education degrees flexible. Flexibility is one of the top student-centric themes that makes higher education even possible for students. The second is individual support. As a frontline instructor, offering individualized support is the key to understanding each student as an individual. Online learning is an isolating experience. Anything we can do to provide individualized support creates a win that helps students to navigate their academic journey. The third is active engagement and active learning, which is the topic of our talk today, using the approach of making the classroom exciting and providing active learning that makes what we're teaching real in the student's life. Doing that right away is a key part of engagement and making the topics we teach useful. I tell my students, here are the ideas we're covering this week. Now, let's make them and use them in a real way.
Absolutely, and let's have fun learning. I'm getting excited now. I want to go teach, and instruct and facilitate. So absolutely love the model, and it is very gratifying to see us put all this in action. So Nancy, thank you. Wonderful job. What can you tell us about the traits of facilitators who are most effective with adult learners?
You have a really great list here, and we don't publish this or present this to overwhelm anyone, but the list is long. But let me share with you why facilitation is so important. It's the active ingredient in active learning. And the ways I use active learning and facilitation of active learning are this. I want to know in the beginning, who are my students really? I want to get to know them individually through the initial introductions that we have at the beginning of a class. I spend quite a bit of time there. I also look, how does the topic we're learning fit them? And as I move into the material we're covering, I know in advance how the subject is going to fit them.
Absolutely. A very, very dynamic process. And again, we're looking at all the students, who's up maybe on the high end, the middle and the low end. Where do we need to put more time? But you pick up so many perceptions of, where can I help? How can I help you? How can I lead and lift and equip you for success? And facilitators, just be aware of a few of these things. Like here's one, number 21, refers to participants by name. Your first name is the sweetest word to you. So hopefully we bridge and we ingratiate right, and we're encouraging, because students are watching us. They're modeling our behaviors too. And so fantastic. I think we got a little feel for what facilitation is. What can you tell us why people learn? What's the learning context?
People learn because they're motivated to do so. If a person is not motivated, they're not going to learn. It doesn't matter how good the teacher is, how good the materials are. But I spend so much time with my students to make sure that they're genuinely motivated and to understand why they're motivated.
Absolutely. And, some practical context to learn to do something themselves, experiential to learn experience. I always said, Students learn on the job, off the job, through the job, when they're working in a personal context. And some are so advanced, they want to learn in an idealistic context so they can learn and discover more. Now, all right. Review of some of the MBTI learning styles, associated preference, or adult learning styles. What can you tell us about these three? How about auditory first?
Sure. Well, like you said, it's helpful to know what type of learners you have in your course. I'm not talking about the high or low performers. I'm talking about how they learn. And auditory learners learn by hearing. They learn best that way by using their ears and their voices. What I use are short videos to explain the ideas that we're covering. That way they get to really hear what the topic is about. I also use my own voiceover videos to explain what I see in the topics that we're covering, and also to offer my own presence in the classroom.
Absolutely fantastic. And I'd be remiss if I did not say before the rest, your attitude must pass the test. Students are watching us as we facilitate, teach, how we show empathy, how we flex, how we care, and how we act with compassion when they have situations. So remember, your voice is important. Your verbal, nonverbal communication, if you hook on with a student in Zoom or you're on a phone, all of that's important, especially to auditory learners, because they may not be learning the content. They may be learning how you flex and lead, how you coach, so a lot to be said in an online learning classroom. What can you tell us about visual learners?
Well, visual learners learn best through seeing. It's their primary sense when they go about learning something new. Again, I use short videos to emphasize the meaning of the concepts that we're talking about, because one thing about visual learners is they really enjoy a picture of something that's being described, and the videos do a good job of that. And again, I use my voiceover videos just to let them know I'm there with them too, and learning alongside them.
And you do an absolutely terrific job, because I've seen you in action many times teaching and facilitating, and just absolutely awesome. And one thing I like to say too, when we talk about carefully organizing our learning materials, the actual visual in the course when they're in Canvas, we're doing a lot of work here with partnering with Learning Mate, to make our content even more refreshed, more impactful, so it influences, and so we're able to set the best, highest quality video tools, media choices in every classroom at UAGC. So Nancy, kinesthetic learners, tell us
The
about it.
kinesthetic learner learns best through touch. They use their hands as a primary way of learning. They enjoy making something from what they learn, and they express their enthusiasm just by being active from what they learn. When I have a kinesthetic learner in one of my classes, I encourage them to take the ideas we're learning into their life or into their job, and then come back to the class and tell us how things went. And that's just one way that I pay attention to kinesthetic learners.
Absolutely fantastic, and great engagement. Great engagement. You're doing wonderful things. Again, I'm excited. I want to go teach and further some student success. So let's talk about MBTI learning preferences. How these work. Maybe you could summarize that real quick for us.
Sure, Phil. MBTI stands for Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. And don't be scared away by that. It's only a body of research that's been done that has been pretty successful and very consistent in identifying personality types. And they do it from several different components of psychology and personality type. For example, I'm an extrovert, I'm intuitive, I'm a thinker, and I have the judging preference, also known as ENTJ. Sometimes when I take the online survey, I'm an introvert, INTJ. And someone told me recently that if I'm half extrovert and half introvert, it makes me an omnivert. Now, don't take too much into how these different personality types factor into learning, because I don't want you to feel that this is going to box you in. I want you to remember that the initial reason why a student has enrolled in the school or to enroll in higher education is reason enough to know what their personality is about. But this is a good way to understand your own personality as an instructor and also as a student. I invite you to take the online survey for MDBTI just to better understand where you fall in these different personality
Yes.
types.
Yeah, and Nancy, I think it's just a good basis to just ask yourself the question, how do I learn best? I mean, you put me in a group, I like to learn through talking, and I'm extroverted, you can tell. And basically in a group, engaging everyone, there's always something I take away. I get someone else's idea. I'm open-minded, my mind, I'm sometimes it's just moving from the judging preference over to perceiving preference to giving something a chance, staying open-minded, using your intuition, what you gain. Sometimes you just want to be quiet and be more of an introvert on certain things, but understand the situation. How do you process? How do you work? Are you a visual learner? Are you a kinesthetic learner? These MBTI, is there a tool in there? You may do better in groups, talking, learning, but instructors, be sensitive to your students. There's so many different ways. And you can see from these photos, here's some groups, students together, learning, whether they're taking a photo, they're sharing information, social learning, they are together. That's just what I wanted to point out. Now, tell us about active learning, how this all comes together.
Well, active learning has 4 different components: dialogue with self, dialogue with others, the process of observation, and the process of doing. And I want to emphasize that last point on doing. Active learning gets the learner fully involved by doing. Now, this is not a new idea. For example, Chinese philosopher Confucius from the 5th century BC wrote, "I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand."
Absolutely perfect. And it just fits this model for open access. And once you really understand it, I built my whole teaching philosophy on this, and it comes from Baumwell and Eisen, where you involve students in doing things, have students think about things they're doing. And, it kind of fits our Socratic method too here at UAGC. So asking questions, probing questions to get dialogue going about content, about how their experience is going, what can I do to help, being a good leader, coach. And I'm going to keep moving as we move to the end here. And Nancy, I'm going to ask you, if you would you describe, somebody came up to you, a student, and said, well, what is active learning? What would you say?
Well, active learning is just, as you mentioned with Bonwell and Eisen, who defined it in 1991, learning is intrinsically dynamic. This is what sets the movement in motion for excitement in the classroom. That's what active learning is all about.
Yes, and Baumwell and Eisen, if I go back to the slide, it requires intellectual effort, high order thinking to assimilate, apply, retain learning. But think about the things that you're doing, and here's some of the things that it's all about. It's participatory. It's not sage on a stage. It's engagement. It's really connecting with students and helping them make connections. Now, this is just something I do as we head toward the end. In my classrooms, I've taught over 300 plus courses, and I've been in higher ed 19 years. I've seen a lot, practice. So a lot of this is intuitive to me because I needed learning theories when I started as an educator. So I quickly went to some training at St. Ambrose University. I learned about adult learning. I learned about the learning styles, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. I also learned about MBTI. learning preferences. And when I learned about active learning, I said, I'm going to keep this. I've had this with me for years. So when I teach, I'm up front and I communicate to the students to say, here's what's going to be going on in our classrooms. We're going to be doing a lot of active learning. Look for me to engage you. And here's some of the concepts, the different active learning methods you are going to see. Repeating, identifying relevance. You can see how I give them a definition. For example, repeating, if they hear me say it again and again and again, I would say that's all about emphasizing a concept and explaining it in alternative terms. This kind of view, but repeating it so they get it, so they can encode it and store it, right? They can use it in their recall. And I'll just pick on one more: elaborating, connecting new information to prior knowledge. That's all there to focus on the mental energy of ideas and objects so they can be assigned meaning. Okay. Somebody said, what's your purpose? Okay. Describe what the meaning is of a purpose. What is your purpose? It just gets the whole process moving. Chunking's a favorite one because sometimes students would get overwhelmed and I'd say, chunk it. And they smile and they say, what does chunk it mean? I say, it's chunking. It's an active learning technique. Isolate it, put it there, learn it. It's something probably you can apply. Nancy, any comments on this? It's kind of an eye chart for everyone, but I would be remiss. We're going to talk about a couple examples really quick as we head to the end. But any comments on this sheet?
No, I think active learning just really gets the student involved, and these points are how to get there.
Absolutely. Well, here are some, active learning definitions again that I just covered a few of them, and I'll just continue to, move forward here. But I'm going to ask you, Nancy, can you just pick on a couple of these really quick and show us how you apply in your classrooms active learning?
Well, I would pick the last one on your list there only because I spend a lot of time organizing information about getting to know the student in the beginning of the course, because then I can make the information relevant to their life and to their work and also to their future goals.
Absolutely. And, relevance is identifying relevance. It's another active learning. You're doing a few of those in the mix here when you do one, so
Yes.
So many things are involved. It's exciting. And, one thing I love about active learning, you see the students light up and they have an aha moment and, they're saying, give me more, engage me more, and again, our Socratic method of engagement, so important. Now I'm just going to, Nancy gave you some from a psychology based course, when she's working with students. I'm going to give you two from an ops management side. I picked on activating prior knowledge, directing attention, elaborating, chunking, organizing. Here's just a couple questions that I might ask a student. Could be in a group, could be one-on-one, could be in a Zoom. Hey, describe a time when you needed to adjust your management style to be more effective for a specific situation, group, or individual. What did you do? What did you shift to? Were you more control oriented? Were you more about transformational leadership? Were you more democratic? And what did you do? But boy, does that start a lot of dialogue sometimes if I fit that question in right. And then finally, to relate to that, what are three most critical leadership qualities? Tell us how you've demonstrated these qualities on your job. That's an application question, a real world application. Boy, do students learn. And what comes out of that is back and forth dialogue, and dialogue has to be equitable, empathetic, and meaningful, or it's not dialogue. If it's hitting all three of those areas, that's what I've learned back at St. Ambrose University throughout my education, and I took it with me, and it keeps me where I need to be. Now, I just wanted to just make reference to some research that I did with, I led a committee. We presented at Quality Matters and at the ADEAL conference in 2019. And the research we did was on active learning. And I did it with Dr. Murad Abel and Dr. William Woods. And what we did, we took a good look at those four areas of active learning, and we surveyed students. We used a Likert scale. We had, I believe, 48 students respond. We looked at 12 courses, and the findings, and this was what was very enlightening, was that on every one of those four areas, students strongly agreed or agreed. And we had the question. So that tells us, that was just a little sample, we are on the right course. That presentation, by the way, if you were to go on the internet and look for Bill Davis, Dr. Murad Abel, Dr. William Woods, and Quality Matters Connect Conference, I think it's 2018, I believe, 18 or 19. And you'll see the presentation, so it's there for you. And if you need it, just email me, bill.davis@uagc.edu. Be glad to share it. Now, Nancy, this is the close. This is where we're kind of pulling it all together, right?
Yes, we are. And
what are your key takeaways?
Yeah, I have 3 takeaways from our presentation today. The first one is active learning is the art of bringing excitement to the classroom. And number 2 is facilitation of active learning brings the information alive into usable skills that students can start using right away and in the future. The third and last takeaway for me is that active learning supports the global and local goals of making higher education more accessible and more useful. Completing a program of higher education isn't just a society requirement or to get a recorded degree. It's the process of higher education that delivers the process of becoming more passionate and more compassionate. Active learning makes higher education real and personal for the student and also the graduate.
Absolutely wonderful. And we are always active learning. I learned something today. I love your style, how you teach, how you facilitate, how you speak. Very, very organized, and you bring out the best of me. So as we go through these particular presentations, be aware to bring out the best in your students, bring out the best in people, your colleagues. We're one team. We are better together. We're proud to be UAGC, and I think our vision speaks for itself. We're here to empower, enrich, support, and graduate every student. So let's make a difference in this world. Let's keep on, following the things we do. We thank you very, very much for being here and listening. And we've got this video. And again, here's our emails. If you need us, feel free to reach out. Always looking to stimulate conversation, dialogue. We're in this together. Share best practices. Let's make a difference. Let's make an impact. And let's lead by example, lead with care, lead with empathy, and act with compassion. We're doing great work. Nancy, any final thoughts as we conclude?
It's just been an honor to present this with you. I want to thank the TLC committee for organizing it. We covered active learning and student-centered learning and how those two relate to open access, and it's been an honor.
Nancy, thank you very much. I am going to end this presentation. And again, we thank you so much for being here, and have a great TLC conference. Thank you.